So today we're going to talk about a CRM, which is a client relationship management tool. Okay. And the idea behind this is to know who your clients are, where they are and where they're going, right? So we're going to look at a couple different tools to use, whether you're in a course, like somebody that you would use to track them in a course, as well as in like a lead magnet situation. So both of you who are on today, Angela Ingo does primarily consultations, in-home visits, right? She's got her course and she can use this for her course as well. But she'll also be using a lot at who's contacting me. How many times has they contacted me? Where am I at? I'm going to just show you some basic things that you can do, because it would just be important, because what happens if you don't track them is they fall through the cracks, right? And then we might forget, oh, who do I have? What do I do? So that's what a CRM is. And anything you're in, so we have different ones for speaking, because who are we contacting? What have we gotten from them? Does that make sense? So it's like, there are different things, but they all are very similar. It's just tracking those leads, nurturing them, knowing how to nurture them and get them to where they where to go, like get them to your end result. So there are some different things out there. Like the bigger you get, the more there is. There are so many. When I look up CRMs, there are so many different kinds of CRMs. I could go through a list of like 20 of them and we'd all be overwhelmed, because like, okay, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to pick. Okay. So as always, I always say simple, you start on a Google sheet, right? You can start on a simple Google sheet, okay? Or a piece of paper or something. I like the internet just because then it's there. If I lose my Post-it note, it's still somewhere, right? And the idea of a CRM is to eventually automate it. So that way you can see, okay, they've done this. So as you've set up a back end system like email automation and email CRM, as you've each set those up, you'll notice we have different lists, right? You have, okay, here's my main newsletter. Here's like my whole subscriber list. Anybody who comes in, they eventually get put on this list, right? They get on that, we call it your newsletter, but it's your main subscriber list. If they join your course, then they're going to get a different list or a tag for a while, right? That way, you know, oh, they came in through my opt-in, they came in through my course, they came in through a discovery call. The idea is to just kind of see how did they find you? How did they get there? Okay. So importance of a CRM is, one, to track who your client is, their contact information, whether that's an email, if they get into your course, or like they do a phone call or something personal, you need to make sure you have that phone number, address. As you notice, when you come into the circle, we get your phone number, your address, all that stuff, so that we can make sure that we're able to send you what we need, right? Okay. The next part is to then track what's the next step. So let me show you. And this is going to go with knowing, this is why it's so important to know your customer journey. Where do they start and where do they end up, right? So that way you can see where the gaps are and go, oh, I need to fill that gap. There's a need that's not being met. Okay, that's like going through this course. At the end, we went through and like, oh, we have some glaring gaps in the community side of things. We have some glaring gaps here. That way I'm able to go back and go, okay, we're losing that, we need to make sure we hit those markers. So let me show you some different, let me go to like a course CRM. This is super simple. This is one that, so if you have a course, okay, so looking at this right here, this is just a Google sheet, right? I have, okay, here's sample name and contact info, depending on your course. Some of you may not have a phone number, right? That may not be something that you do, but I have the start date. What's the day that they started my course, right? The day they signed up. And then an end date. This would be, the end date would be specific to, if you have it specifically 6 weeks, it's specifically 12 weeks. So when we did Connie's 12-week courses, then we knew week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, right? Those are the things they were going to hit. Okay. We have a program agreement that we would send out. At this point, Some of you don't, you might not have to worry about that. Okay, but then I'm looking at, okay, what are they hitting in these different weeks? Instead of a week 1, I might put in, for example, I might say, okay, we are going to do, gosh, our media plan, right? Did you get your media plan done? Okay, the other one might be your course and community outline, right? So like basically going down the checklist of what you are to do, that's what I'm looking at. Okay, did they turn this in? Did they turn this in? Did they hit this? It might be that if I'm looking at an online course, did they complete, phase 1, which is the lighting or the plants, or have they gone through the kudos thing? Does that make sense? Like phase 1, phase 2, like what have they hit? Okay. It depends on how in depth. In our circle, I also track things. I track your tier 1. I'm able to say, hey, it looks like you have all of this done, but you don't have a newsletter yet. So how can we help you with that? Does that make sense? So that way I'm tracking, I can go through and show you that whole DTLC, and it's all color coded. So I quickly can look and go, okay, I can see the gaps. Oh, I have 10 people who don't have a newsletter yet. I might need to do a newsletter masterclass. Does that make sense? Or all of these women, like we've talked about community, but nobody really has a structured community yet. It's time to talk about that. Okay. Or does that make sense? Okay. So this is basically for a course. And then, what's your end result? What do I want them to hit? I'm nurturing them. Did they hop on a Zoom call? Maybe in here, I have one that's going to be a Zoom call. Did they hop on? Did they come? Do they need an invitation? Does that make sense? So just kind of seeing where they're at. Now, another kind of way, so if you're like, okay, I could do it in Google, that's a simple one to start. Another way to do it is, this is Trello, and it's a Trello board, and it looks more like this. So what we would do is, this is more for like a lead management tool. So somebody would schedule a discovery call with Connie, and we automated this. We actually had somebody who, you can get somebody through Upwork or online. There are all these people that will do it for free. They might be in the Philippines or out of country, but but we had a gal do this for us, and she set it up super fast. I said, this is how we want this. We want to automate it. And she was able to set up, we gave her the information she needed, and she just set it up. So somebody would schedule a discovery call with Connie. We don't use this one now, but they do a scheduled discovery call, and it would automatically have a list of checklists. And once they did that, we're like, okay, they did that. Then I would move them like, okay, do we need a follow-up? Or did they purchase it? So if they purchased the retreat or the program, we would move them into the purchased. If they didn't purchase it, we would put them in here, right? And then we'd say, okay, we need to follow up in 4 weeks. Or, hey, they ended up doing the challenge. Do you see this? Which, this is funny. I didn't even know Ashley was on here. I'm looking at this now. I'm like, look, here's Ashley. She did our purpose challenge like back in 2018.
So can I just interrupt and ask a question? That'd be okay. So are you manually putting all these in then, or did it automatically track?
We had it automated. So on this one, these ones I probably did originally manually, but then when we figured out we could do it like have it automated, that's really what you want, because you don't want to spend all your time here, but you would have to come. And so like if I added a card, I don't know if it would have a name. Let me pull up.
This is good because it helps you keep track of your clients, because they are usually they're your reoccur.
Yes.
If you're nurturing them, then they usually will come back for more.
Yep. So we'll pull up Ashley's here. So here's Ashley. She did the 5-day purpose challenge. And then we had, okay, here are the 5 things that we want to have. She got a confirmation email with a survey. Okay. And then she filled out the survey. Did she do a discovery call? And then she scheduled a discovery call. And then this would be where, okay, she had a call. We sent a thank you email, sent a link to the program to purchase it. She was added to, this was purpose-filled, it's now purpose-filled women. We followed up, we moved client to the board, moved potential client. Now, you can have somebody set that up where you say, okay, these are the checklists, but when they check this one off, it automatically moves them to the next board.
How does
that
it
make sense?
What is it integrating with? Is it integrating with, how is it getting information from somewhere else to put into here? Like, how does it know you had a call? How does it know?
Because you would have to integrate it. You would have to see what's integrated. So an example is
It gives me
like,
the biggest headache.
Do you integrate through MailChimp or whatever you're integrating through MailChimp or whatever?
or like Acuity. So for example,
Okay.
wherever, if you have a scheduler, okay, so for Connie, it was, she had a scheduler at this time, and it was through like OneSub or something, and they would schedule, and actually it went into here because we moved to Asana. So this is what we use now, but it looks similar. But what it would do is, so you're gonna see, these are podcasts. So like right here, all of these people were people who, we'll pull up the test because this was one of our old VAs. So what would happen is they would schedule a discovery call with Connie, and it's called a Zap. There are programs that will integrate it and would zap it into here, into our email management. It would give her a tag called discovery call or call with Connie, something like that. And then it would zap it into here, and it would say, okay, here's what we zapped. It has her email, it has her phone number, and it has the date of this discovery call. Okay. And then with an automation, you can go in and say, okay, yes, that was done. And then this is where you find somebody who can help you set that up, where we look into like Upwork or something, say, hey, I'm looking for somebody. I'm trying to think, I need to talk to my brother. My brother is the king at this and knowing who to go find. And I think he said you can even go on Amazon. There's a place on there and you can type in, I'm looking for somebody to be able to set up this system. He's like, and you'll have several people say, I can do that for this amount. And then they'll just set that up and they'll zap it into there. And then you just say, okay, automate it. Now, the more automated you get, you will need to pay for something, for an automation but that would be as you build. But initially I would start with a Google Sheet and saying, I need to track this, like who comes in, like who I've talked to, I've done a consult, I've done this and this, because then when you set that to somebody and say, I want to create an automation, a tracking system that does this, and this is what I need to have, when they do this, it moves to here, then it moves to here. They can go do that for you and do the back end, but you just need to let them know what your journey looks like. Does that make sense? So
if we start with Google Sheet, do you have like a next one you would recommend? Would it be Trello?
I would do what works for you in the sense of this. Like a Trello board is easy. If you like the look of a Trello board, that's what I use. I use Asana a lot because I use it for more than one thing. Another one I'm looking into are things is called Zoho. That's really good for speaking, but I'm looking into it for coaching. Another one is called Honeybook, ClickUp, but they're like project management and coaching management. So just different lead management tools. You can use a lot of them so it's kind of looking at that customer journey. So going, hey, they signed up for my 5-day challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the next step I want them to get? Is it my course? Is it a discovery call? And then I say, okay, if they're not signing up for a discovery call, do I need to do some more follow-up, some more nurture? What is it that we need? Does that make sense? So it's just kind of seeing that group. So I would say I'm one of those, like, Trello is really, a lot of people love Trello because it is very easy. A lot of people have boards that you can create in there. I'm just like looking at that, but I always say start with Google on pen and paper so you know exactly what it is that you need to track. And like I said, that's what we gave to this gal and said, this is what we're tracking in this 12-week program. And once I hit that, now I have to go in and still manually like hit check. Yes, they turned in that assignment, or yes, they did that. And then it would automatically bump them like, oh yeah, once they completed that, it bumps them and it automatically added the next checklist.
Okay.
And so, but that would be like, okay, what are my key, those are our KPIs, right? What are those key performance indicators that they need to hit, those outcomes. And for some of you, that's going to be a smaller list. Like I need them to do a call with me. I'm going to come into their home or, you know, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, but basically knowing what is your customer journey through your course or your community to get them there. And sometimes it's just by being on their news, you know, on your newsletter. If you're that big, it might be getting there, but you know, did they buy a book? Did they do this? But in your community or your course, it's really important to know, are they hitting those key pieces? Or are they falling through the cracks? Does that make sense? So, I mean, you might have somebody like Angela Ingo, where she had somebody join her course and they didn't get on the Zoom, but they scheduled a call and a consultation and hired her. So that worked, right? So they're like, oh, I want her to just come do this for me, you know, so that works too. So that's basically that client. It's basically to track that client. You want to make sure it does that as you move forward. And there's Infusionsoft. We don't do that one. It's so complicated. Like we were in ClickFunnels, that's complicated as well. But all of those things can nurture them that way. So any other questions on that? I just want to give you a basic rundown, but I'll send that template and you just figure out, okay, what would that look like for my client journey? So we usually have a couple, but that's how people fall through the cracks sometimes, is if we're not doing that. So anyway, all right.
Just amazed at how many things there are to know.
Yeah.
On this whole journey. There's so many pieces to learn something brand new that you didn't know before. That's like seemingly not related at all to what you're doing, but you have to know how to do it. So then you can know how to do the piece that goes with
it. And I think of a CRM as like your budget, you're budgeting your clients, right? Like we all have to keep track of our money and where it's going. And we want to put it there. It's same thing with a CRM is, well, I've got all these clients, but I want to make sure I'm guiding them in what's going to be the most successful for them. You know, if they're going to succeed, or are they all falling out? And then it also helps you know, hey, they're all in this phase, but they're all falling out on week 2. Oh, what do I need to reevaluate on week 1? Right? Like I'm losing them. They're not clicking the finish button. Like we found that with our last 5-day purpose challenge. I'm like, nobody's clicking, nobody's getting the free book. Like we have this free ebook of Connie's that anybody can get if they would just hit that green button. Nobody's hitting it. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I need to go send them an email that says, hey, you know, if you just do this, like you could get that free book, right? So, and those are some things too. I was like, oh, are we not talking about that enough? Does that make sense? So anyway, with a discovery call, it might be, here's this, how many times have I talked to them? We have that too. Okay, here's my list of people. I've talked to them here, 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 and here. So it just depends on what you're tracking, but for your course, really focus on those outcomes and what you want them to hit, those mile markers and those milestones. So, okay. So I'll get that template too, if you guys, so that way you can be like, okay, this is what I need to track. This will help them be most successful, keep them coming back. And for some of them, it may not be. If you have a huge community, you have this huge subscription community, do you know what I mean? It might be different than like, oh, are they opting into that? Do you know what I mean? It's going to be different than doing this course where you just want to make sure these people are finishing. And you can track it like in MemberVault. I'd have to look in Teachable or Thinkific. I don't know. But in MemberVault, I know that when I say, oh, they finished this, I can put a tag on them. Does that make sense? So then it could tag them, and then I can add an action that says, so like, for instance, if you, as soon as, Angela Myers, as soon as you finish Foundation 5 and you hit submit, you got a tag that said Tier 1 and you got a welcome email that said, welcome to Tier 1, right? We didn't used to have that. Angela Myers is going, Angela Ingo's going, I didn't get that, because we realized we needed to, you know, add that piece in. Does that make sense? So little things like that.